When the fire consumed everything Mark Sullivan owned at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night, his Filipino neighbors did something that left him completely speechless. What happened next would expose the lie he'd been living his entire life. Picture this: a successful American businessman standing in the street in his pajamas, watching flames devour his high-rise condo, clutching nothing but a laptop and phone. Everything else, gone. But what the security guard he'd ignored for 6 months did next would shatter everything Mark thought he knew about happiness, success, and what it means to truly live. This is the story of how one devastating night destroyed a man's worldview and revealed a truth about joy he never saw coming. Meet Mark Sullivan, 42 years old, corporate consultant from Seattle, Washington, the kind of guy who wore expensive watches, drank single malt scotch, and measured success in quarterly earnings. Mark had it all: six-figure salary, luxury car back in the States, a resume that opened doors. He was the definition of the American dream. Except for one small problem. Mark was miserable. Divorced at 38, his 2 kids barely spoke to him. His life was conference calls, hotel rooms, and an apartment that felt more like a storage unit than a home. When his consulting firm offered him a 2-year contract in Manila working with a tech company, Mark jumped at it. New country, fresh start, big paycheck. He arrived in the Philippines in June during the sweltering summer heat. From day one, Mark was annoyed. The traffic was insane. The humidity made his shirt stick to his back. And the people? They confused him. No, they irritated him. Everywhere he looked, people were smiling. The jeepney driver navigating impossible traffic? Smiling. The woman selling mangoes in the scorching heat, laughing with customers. The construction workers covered in sweat and dust, joking with each other. Mark settled into a luxury high-rise condo in Bonifacio Global City, BGC, the modern business district. Sleek glass towers, international restaurants, mostly expats and wealthy Filipinos. He could almost forget he wasn't in Singapore or Hong Kong. He kept his distance from local culture. Western restaurants only, grab rides everywhere, Netflix in the evenings. His circle consisted of other expats who complained about the same things: the traffic, the heat, the noise. But Mark had one complaint that became his catchphrase, the thing he'd say at every expat gathering. These Filipinos are too happy. It's not realistic. Look around. There's poverty everywhere. Traffic is a nightmare. People work 12-hour days for nothing. And they're smiling? They're delusional. It's like toxic positivity on a national scale. Other expats would laugh uncomfortably. Some would nod. A few would challenge him, but Mark always doubled down. I'm just being honest. Real happiness requires real success. Everything else is just pretending. 6 months into his Manila posting, Mark had perfected his bubble. Work, gym, condo, repeat. He learned exactly 0 Tagalog phrases except salamat, and even that he rarely used. His building had excellent security. There was this one guard, Manong Mon, probably in his 60s. Every single day, without fail, Mon would greet Mark with this enormous smile. "Good morning, Sir Mark. Magandang umaga. Have a blessed day, sir. Welcome home, sir. How was your day?" At first, Mark just nodded. Then he started finding it annoying. This guy worked 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, standing in the heat, opening doors, checking IDs. He probably made in a month what Mark spent on dinner. And yet every day, that smile, that genuine warmth. One evening, Mark complained about it to James, a British colleague. They were having drinks at a rooftop bar in BGC. "It's the security guard in my building," Mark said, swirling his whiskey. "Every day, massive smile, asking about my day like he actually cares. The guy makes minimum wage and acts like he won the lottery." James looked at him carefully. "You're missing something important here, Mark." "What? The ability to ignore reality?" "No, the ability to find joy despite reality. There's a difference." Mark scoffed. "That's just another way of saying denial." James shook his head. "You've been here 6 months and learned nothing. That's actually impressive." The comment stung, but Mark brushed it off. What did James know anyway? It was a Tuesday night. Mark had finished a late conference call with Seattle around midnight. He'd heated up some leftovers, watched an episode of something forgettable, and went to bed around 1 a.m. At 2:17 a.m., Mark's life changed forever. He woke to the smell of smoke. Not faint smoke, thick, acrid smoke that immediately made him cough. The fire alarm was blaring, the piercing sound cutting through his confusion. Mark stumbled out of bed. Smoke was seeping under his door. He touched the doorknob. Hot. Training kicked in. Don't open doors if they're hot. He ran to his window. 7 floors below, he could see people gathering in the street. Flames were visible from units below him. The building was on fire. His heart pounded. The smoke was getting thicker. He grabbed a towel, wet it in the bathroom, covered his mouth. Think, Mark. Think. He grabbed his laptop from the desk, his phone from the nightstand, looked around his condo. His clothes, his documents, photos of his kids, the expensive watch his father gave him. Everything. No time. Mark opened his door. The hallway was filled with smoke, but no flames yet. He could see the emergency exit sign glowing. He ran, laptop clutched under one arm, phone in his other hand, wearing nothing but his pajama pants and a t-shirt. The stairwell was chaos. People crying, coughing, helping elderly neighbors. Mark pushed through, driven by pure survival instinct. When he burst out of the building into the Manila night, the scene was surreal. Fire trucks everywhere, their lights painting everything red and blue. Firefighters shouting in Tagalog, unreeling massive hoses, and flames, angry orange flames, consuming the building he'd called home. Mark stood there in the street, barefoot, in his pajamas, watching everything burn. His clothes, his furniture, his important documents, the signed baseball from his college days, the letters his kids wrote him years ago before the divorce, the expensive sound system, his entire material life, gone. He felt his knees go weak. A firefighter yelled something in Tagalog he didn't understand. Someone guided him further from the building. Mark stood there, numb, watching his floor burn. For the first time in his adult life, successful, wealthy Mark Sullivan had absolutely nothing. Mark didn't know how long he stood there. Could have been minutes, could have been an hour. Time felt strange, elastic. He was shaking, though whether from shock or the night air, he couldn't tell. Then he felt a hand on his shoulder. "Sir Mark?" He turned. It was Manong Mon, the security guard, still in his uniform, but his face wasn't wearing that usual smile. It was filled with concern. "Sir, you're safe. Salamat sa Diyos, thank God." Mark just stared at him. Mon immediately took off his jacket, a thin windbreaker, and draped it over Mark's shoulders. "Sir, you can't stand here like this. Come with me." I have nowhere," Mark's voice cracked. "Come with me," Mon repeated firmly. "You come to my home. It's okay." Mark's brain couldn't process this. "Your home? No, I'll find a hotel." "Sir Mark, look at yourself. No shoes, no wallet, no ID. Right now you come with me. We figure out everything tomorrow." Mon was right. Mark looked down at himself, barefoot, covered in soot, wearing pajamas, clutching a laptop like a life preserver. He was in no state to check into a hotel. "Okay," Mark whispered. They took a taxi. Mon paid. They drove for about 20 minutes, leaving the sleek towers of BGC behind, entering a more local neighborhood in Makati. Narrow streets, small houses packed together, electric wires crisscrossing overhead. Mon's home was a modest concrete house, maybe 700 square feet total. But when they arrived at 4 a.m., the lights were on. Mon's wife Lorna was at the door, and when she saw Mark, her hand went to her chest. "Dios ko, Mon, the American from your building?" "The fire, Mahal. He lost everything." Lorna didn't hesitate. She immediately ushered Mark inside. Their daughter Marie, probably mid-20s, was already pulling sheets and a pillow. Their teenage son Carlo was clearing the small living room couch. "Sir, you sit here," Lorna said, guiding him to a chair. "I'll make coffee. Are you hurt? Do you need doctor?" Mark shook his head. I'm okay. I'm so sorry to intrude like this." "No sorry," Lorna said firmly. You stay here. It's okay. Within minutes, Mark had hot coffee in his hands. Marie brought out a clean shirt and shorts. These are my brothers, sir. You can change. Mark looked around at this family, cramped into their small home, offering him everything. He felt something crack inside his chest. I don't understand, he said quietly. You don't even know me. Mon sat down across from him. Sir Mark, every day for 6 months, I see you. Every day, I say good morning. You are not a stranger. And even if you were, in the Philippines, we have a saying, Walang dayuhan, lahat ay kaibigan. No strangers, everyone is a friend. That night, Mark lay on their small couch, listening to the sounds of this family's home. The hum of an electric fan, someone's soft snoring, a neighbor's rooster crowing too early, and for the first time in years, Mark Sullivan cried. Not quiet tears, but deep, shaking sobs. For his marriage that failed, for his kids he'd alienated, for the life he'd wasted chasing the wrong things, for the man he'd become, successful, wealthy, and completely alone. He'd called these people delusional. But lying in their home, wrapped in their kindness, Mark realized something terrifying. He was the delusional one. Mark woke to the smell of something cooking. For a confused moment, he didn't know where he was. Then it all came back. The fire. Mon, this small house. It was 7 a.m. Lorna was in the tiny kitchen, cooking breakfast. Eggs, fried rice, dried fish. She saw him sit up and smiled. Good morning, Sir Mark. You sleep okay? Better than I expected, honestly. You eat breakfast with us, then we see what you need. The family ate together, all 5 of them squeezed around a small table. They bowed their heads, and Mon said grace. Mark couldn't remember the last time he'd said grace, probably childhood. After breakfast, something remarkable started happening. Neighbors began arriving. Word had spread about the American who lost everything in the fire. One by one, they came to Mon's door. A woman named Aunt Mercy brought a bag of men's clothes. My son is abroad, sir. These clothes just sitting. You take them. An elderly man, Tate Rodell, brought toiletries, toothbrush, soap, shampoo. All still in packaging. From the Sorry store, you need these things. A young couple brought a shopping bag of food. For the family, since they have a guest. Mark was completely overwhelmed. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. Aunt Mercy looked genuinely confused by the question. You need help. We can help. It's simple. Mon smiled. Sir Mark, this is Bayanihan, community helping each other. It's the Filipino way. More people came throughout the morning. Someone brought a pair of rubber slippers. Someone else brought a phone charger. Marie gave Mark one of her brother's bags to carry things in. Mark sat on the front step, watching this parade of generosity, and he felt something breaking inside him. These people had so little. The houses were small, the streets were narrow. Most of them worked hard labor for wages that wouldn't cover a single meal at the restaurants Mark frequented. And yet, they gave. Not from their excess, but from what they needed. Around noon, Mark excused himself and walked around the corner, needing a moment alone. He sat on a low concrete wall and just let the tears come. He'd spent 42 years believing that success meant having more than everyone else, more money, more status, more stuff. He'd structured his entire life around accumulation, and in one night, he'd lost it all. And these people, who he'd dismissed as delusional, were showing him a kind of wealth he'd never even known existed. Lorna found him there. She didn't say anything, just sat down next to him. They sat in silence for several minutes. No words, no advice, no attempt to fix him, just presence. The simple gift of not being alone. Finally, Lorna spoke softly. When my mother died 10 years ago, I thought I would die too from sadness. The neighbors came, just like today. They brought food. They sat with me. They cried with me. They didn't try to make it better. They just were there. This is how we survive, together. Mark nodded, unable to speak. You lost your things, Sir Mark, But you didn't lose everything. You're alive. You're here. And now you're part of our community. That's something you can't burn. Mark stayed with Mon's family for 2 weeks while he sorted out insurance, got replacement documents, and looked for a new place. But he found himself not rushing the process. Every morning, he'd wake to the sounds of the household getting ready. Marie heading to her nursing classes, Carlo to school, Mon leaving for his security shift, Lorna preparing for her day cleaning houses in the wealthy subdivisions. Mark started joining the rhythms of their life. He'd ride the jeepney with Carlo sometimes, squeezing into the crowded vehicle, passing coins forward to pay the driver. He'd eat at the local carinderia, pointing at dishes he couldn't name, learning to love the sour tang of sinigang and the rich warmth of kare-kare. He met the neighbors, Manong Tomas, who fixed motorcycles and told terrible jokes, Ate Susan, who sold kakanin from her front window and always gave him extra, the kids who played basketball in the narrow street, who started calling him Kuya Mark. One evening, Mark sat outside with Mon, both of them drinking San Miguel beer as the sun set. "Can I ask you something?" Mark said. "Of course, sir." "Please, just Mark. No, sir." Mark paused. "You work 12-hour shifts 6 days a week. You send money to your mother in the province. You're supporting your kids' education on a security guard's salary. How are you so happy?" Mon was quiet for a moment, thoughtful. "You think being happy means having no problems?" "I guess I did, yeah." "Then you'll never be happy, Mark. Life is problems. Always. If you wait for no problems to be happy, you wait forever." Mon took a sip of beer. "Being happy isn't ignoring the problems. It's choosing not to let the problems steal your humanity." "But how? How do you choose that?" "Family, community, faith, purpose. I work hard, yes, but I come home to people I love. I sit with neighbors who make me laugh. I help my mother who raised me. I'm teaching my son to be a good man. These things," Mon tapped his chest, "these things make life rich. Your money can't buy this." Mark felt that familiar burning in his eyes. "I had everything, Mon. Big salary, nice things, and I felt empty, angry all the time. I looked at you and thought you were delusional for being happy despite having nothing. But I'm the one who had nothing, not you." Mon put his hand on Mark's shoulder. "You weren't delusional, my friend. You were just lonely. The saddest kind of lonely, surrounded by things but not people." That weekend, Marie invited Mark to come with her to a community center in Quezon City where she volunteered, teaching basic first aid. Mark found himself helping set up chairs, handing out materials, and talking to people. There was a single mother there, working 2 jobs, learning first aid so she could find better work. An elderly man who walked 2 kilometers to attend because he wanted to help in his barangay. A group of teenagers who could have been anywhere else but chose to be there, learning to serve. After the session, the organizer, Kuya Eddie, approached Mark. "Marie says you work in business consulting?" "Yeah, that's right. Some of the local sari store owners, they struggle with management, inventory, pricing. Maybe sometime you could share knowledge? Not for money, just to help?" Mark thought about his consulting rate back in Seattle. $500 an hour. The idea of giving that knowledge away for free would have seemed insane 6 months ago. "I'd love to," Mark heard himself say. That night, Mark did something he hadn't done in over a year. He called his daughter Emily back in Seattle. "Dad?" She sounded shocked. "Hey, Em, I know it's been a while. I wanted to hear your voice. Is everything okay?" Mark laughed, surprising himself. "Actually, yeah, something happened here, and I've been thinking a lot about us, about how I haven't been a good father, and I want to change that, if you'll let me." The conversation lasted 2 hours. They cried, they laughed, they started tentatively to rebuild. 6 months after the fire, Mark's life looked completely different. He'd found a new condo, modest this time, in a more local neighborhood. But he visited Mon's family every week. Sunday lunches became a tradition. Mark would bring groceries, and Lorna would cook, and they'd eat together, talking and laughing for hours. Mark's whole approach to life had shifted. He still did his consulting work, but he'd also started spending 2 afternoons a week helping local small business owners with basic business planning, no charge. He'd say to them what Kuya Eddie said to him, just to help. He learned Tagalog, badly with an American accent that made children giggle, but he learned. He could order food, greet neighbors, understand basic conversations. He tried everything. He ate balut, which made him gag, but he tried. He joined a local basketball game and was terrible but had fun. He went to a fiesta in Mon's province and sat with relatives who treated him like family despite meeting him that day. One afternoon, Mark was helping at the community center when he saw Manong Mon stopping by to pick up Marie. Mon was in his security uniform, getting ready for his evening shift. Mark walked over. Mon, can I talk to you for a minute? Of course. They stepped outside. Mark took a breath. I need to say something. When I first got here, I thought I called you delusional. I told people Filipinos were too happy, that it wasn't realistic. I was completely wrong, and I'm sorry. Mon smiled gently. Mark, I knew what you thought. I could see it in your face every morning when I greeted you. You knew? Of course. Many foreigners think this way when they first come. They see our happiness and think it means we don't understand our problems. But it's the opposite. We understand our problems very well. We just refuse to let problems be all we are. Why did you help me that night? I'd been nothing but dismissive to you for months. Mon's eyes were kind. You weren't dismissive, Mark. You were suffering. Lonely people often push others away. I saw a man who needed help, that's all. Mark felt the tears coming again. 6 months ago, he never cried. Now it seemed like he cried every week, but they were different tears. Not tears of despair, but of release. You saved my life that night, Mark said. Not just from the fire, from myself. No, my friend, you saved yourself. I just gave you a place to land. Mark's company wanted to extend his contract. They offered him a promotion, more money, a chance to move to their Singapore office. The old Mark would have jumped at it. Singapore was more developed, more Western, more prestigious. Mark turned it down. He extended his Manila contract instead. His ex-wife Jennifer called him one evening confused. Emily says you're different, happy. She said you two talk every week now. We do. What happened to you, Mark? Mark thought about how to answer. I lost everything. And then I found out what actually matters. That's very cryptic. I know, but it's true. He paused. Hey, Jen. I'm sorry. For how I was during our marriage, for making work more important than family, for being so focused on success that I forgot how to be human. There was a long silence. Mark, are you okay? Like, really? He laughed. For the first time in my adult life, yeah, I really am. 1 year to the day after the fire, Mark did something that would have been unthinkable to the old Mark Sullivan. He rented a small covered court in Mon's neighborhood and threw a party. Not for business contacts or professional networking, for everyone who had helped him. 8 Mercy was there, Tate Rodell, the couple who brought food, Marie and Carlo, the kids from the basketball games, the Sari store owners he'd been helping, Kuya Eddie from the community center, neighbors he'd gotten to know, and of course, Mon and Lorna dressed in their finest. Mark had arranged for a lechon, the whole roasted pig that meant celebration in Filipino culture, mountains of pancit, piles of lumpia, buckets of rice. A DJ played music, and kids ran around while adults talked and laughed. When the sun started to set, Mark stood up. Someone handed him a microphone. The crowd quieted. I'm not good at speeches, Mark started, and people laughed because by now they knew him. Knew he was actually very good at speeches but got emotional easily. 1 year ago tonight, I lost everything in a fire. My apartment, my possessions, everything I owned. I stood in the street in my pajamas thinking my life was over. And then this man, Mark pointed to Mon, did something that changed everything. He brought me to his home. He shared what little he had, and all of you did the same. Mark's voice was shaking now. I came to the Philippines thinking I had it all figured out. I thought happiness was about success and money and having more than everyone else. I looked at all of you and thought you were delusional for being happy despite not having what I had, but I was so wrong." He took a breath. "I had everything and felt nothing. You had little and felt everything. I thought Filipino happiness was ignorance, but it's not. It's wisdom. It's knowing that life is hard, problems are real, but connection is what makes us human. Community is what makes life worth living." People were nodding, some wiping their eyes. "I lost everything in that fire, and I found everything in the ashes. You taught me what Kapwa means, that we share one inner self, that we're all connected. You showed me Bayanihan, that we're stronger together. You gave me something money never bought and success never provided, belonging." Mark looked at Mon. "You told me I wasn't delusional, just lonely. You were right. I was the loneliest person in the world, surrounded by everything except what mattered. So thank you. All of you. For seeing me when I couldn't see myself, for including me when I didn't deserve it, for teaching me what it means to actually live." Mon stood up and walked over. He pulled Mark into a tight hug. "Welcome home, brother," he said in Tagalog. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Later that night, as people were eating and dancing and celebrating, Lorna found Mark standing at the edge of the court, watching. "You look happy," she said. "I am, really, genuinely happy. I didn't even know what this felt like." "The fire took your things," Lorna said, "but maybe it gave you something better. It gave me everything that matters." As the party wound down, children asleep on their parents' shoulders, adults still laughing and sharing stories, Mark thought about the journey, from that cynical American businessman standing in judgment of an entire culture's happiness, to this moment, surrounded by people who'd become his family. He pulled out his phone and texted his daughter Emily. "Miss you, Em. Come visit me soon. I want you to meet the people who saved your dad's life." 3 dots appeared. Then, "I'd love that, Dad. I'm proud of you." Mark looked up at the Manila night sky, stars barely visible through the city lights, and smiled. The old Mark would have dismissed this scene as quaint, unsophisticated, small. The new Mark understood it for what it was, everything. Mark Sullivan's story teaches us something profound about happiness and what it means to truly live. He came to the Philippines as a successful businessman who thought joy required wealth and comfort. He saw people smiling despite hardship and called it delusion. But when fire stripped away everything he owned, those same people revealed a truth he'd spent 42 years missing. Filipino happiness isn't denial, it's defiance. It's the radical choice to find joy despite suffering, to build community despite scarcity, to love generously despite having little. Mark learned that you can have everything and feel empty, or have nothing and feel full. The difference isn't in your bank account. It is in your connection to other human beings. Today, Mark still lives in Manila. He's rebuilding his relationship with his kids. He volunteers weekly. He's part of a community that welcomed a broken stranger and helped him become whole. When people ask him about the fire, Mark always says the same thing. "The fire took my possessions. The Filipinos gave me something money never bought, a life worth living." Sometimes we have to lose everything to find what actually matters. Have you ever had a moment that completely shattered your worldview? An experience that made you rethink everything you believed about happiness, success, or what makes life meaningful? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button for more stories about unexpected transformations and the wisdom we find in the most surprising places. Salamat po. Thank you for watching.